Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. Myles Kennedy is one of my favorite artists around, man, and so it was such a privilege to get to share some time with him on the show, talking about his new solo album and a lot more. This aired on Friday, August 9th. Here you go. I have been looking forward to tonight's guest for a while, man, not just because he has a new album coming out in October, but because, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the greatest vocalists in rock and roll today, and so a chance to hang and catch up, yeah, I'm all in. Myles Kennedy, thank you so much for hanging, man.
Thank you. That's really kind of you. I appreciate that, man.
For sure, man. Well, listen, I right out of the gate, mentioned the new album, the next solo album, The Art of Letting Go. It is set for release on October 11th. We are loving the lead single, Say What You Will, on Loudwire Nights. With the song out, with the album on the horizon, you're doing interviews, looking forward to all this. How are you feeling, man?
I feel good. It's always... It's funny because when you make music and perform music, it's about music, but then, you've got all this other stuff that you do to prepare for the tour and the release and you talking. And so, I'm just kind of getting back into the swing of it. We're kind of early in the game here. So I got to dust the cobwebs off.
Yeah. Does it feel different releasing an album with your name on it as opposed to Alter Bridge or The Conspirators?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you feel like a different kind of pressure just because it's Myles Kennedy?
Yeah. It's like, it's my name. Yeah. Oh no, I can't hide behind the band, Yeah, maybe that's part of why I put on, people were teased for forever because there was this long rumored solo record, for a long time that I never ended up releasing. Maybe that was some of it. Is just like the pressure, with your name on the marquee. But I feel comfortable now. I mean, it's I had that first record, with Year of the Tiger. That was a bit, I think, as it was getting ready to be released, that I was certainly. It was becoming more prevalent what I was about to embark on, as a solo artist for the first time. But now I feel comfortable. I actually really enjoy it.
Well, and the Year of the Tiger, your debut solo album, but also, certainly a departure from what maybe some fans knew you as from Alter Bridge,
right.
And also, a pretty heavy album emotionally or lyrically for you, right? It was a concept kind of focusing on your father's death. And so fast forward, here we are talking about The Art of Letting Go. Musically, much different, right? It's a heavy, it's a rock album, man, through and through. And I love it. And I think Say What You Will is a good representation of that. Not just, I'm not saying every song sounds like that, but that sort of intensity, that rock and roll, that just kind of nonstop energy. You hear that throughout the album.
Yeah. It is a departure from where it started. I definitely have an about face in a lot of ways. And yeah, it was funny because for this record, I just decided, I want to play some rock and roll. And initially I was hesitant, with the first record, I was like, it's got to be something totally different than anything I do. I was very aware of that. And as time went on, I realized, well, I'm known as being a rock singer. It's like I've got all these songs and all these things I want to express that won't work in these other realms. So I feel like I should allow myself the artistic license to go ahead and embark on this and make a riff rock record and just not be afraid of that. So I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed the process. And I think for the other really important part of the equation was touring, it's become this thing with Zia Udine and Tim Turnier in my rhythm section. And we're good friends. I've known Zia and I have been playing together since we were kids. We were playing bars together when we were in high school, so that's a long standing relationship. And what were we playing? We were playing rock and roll. So it's I felt like that was where we were, comfortable. And we would take the songs that were recorded a certain way, let's say for Year of the Tiger, and then we would have to change the arrangements, and we'd end up kind of making the songs rock a little more, and to make it work as a three-piece, because I wasn't going to take out all these different because I would layer so much on those records with lap steel and all this stuff. So part of the intention with this record was to play something that we can pull off live as a three-piece.
Sure, that makes sense. And I mean, you guys are going to do that, right? Early 2025. It's crazy to me that we're talking about tours in 2025 already.
Right.
But I can't wait for this, man. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited as well. And we're starting in Europe in late October. So we'll do that run for 5 or 6 weeks. So hopefully we'll be all good and warmed up for when we start here in the States.
Right on. And opening for you in the States, supporting you is Tim Montana. He's become a good friend of our show. He's been on the show a bunch. We love his new album too. Were you involved in considering him as a support? Like what did that look like?
Yeah. His name came up and I checked out his music and I was like, oh yeah, this works. This would definitely fit. And, cause what I hear it's kind of the same approach to what I'm doing here, where I just think it would work. I feel like it's a good pairing as opposed to some, taking out my favorite polka band.
Yeah. Maybe one day, man.
Hey, next tour, my next record will be a heavy metal polka record. I've been threatening that for years.
I won't ask you too many details about your favorite polka band, and we'll save that for the end of the conversation. Talking about Year of the Tiger, talking about where you're at today with this new album, it sounds like you're more comfortable kind of in that rock space, in the riff space. Is that true, or do you find yourself like picking up an acoustic guitar, feeling pretty comfortable there too? Like what does that look like?
That's a great question because it kind of depends where I'm at. I have been for a while now really back on the electric kick. A few years ago I was lucky enough to PRS. We worked together and put out the signature model guitar. And since that happened, I've been just all in on playing electric all the time. Yeah. It's just because it just blows my mind that I fooled someone to give me a signature guitar. But I just love it. And so I'm playing a lot. But with that said, I do vocally, I really like singing over acoustic music as well, because what I find with acoustic is that the nuances and the inflections and a lot of it tends to it's a nice, having an acoustic guitar and just a vocal. There's something about that just works, and I've always loved to do that. I've been doing that for a long time, so it'll happen again. I just think for the time being, I'm going to turn the amp up to 11 and rock out.
Right on. Well, listen, PRS, they make acoustic guitars too, man.
They do. That's a good point.
Do, yeah.
That's a good point.
So, interesting hearing you say that. Do you write differently, like lyrically? Do you write differently for acoustic versus electric? Because listen, Alter Bridge, there's some deep songs, like lyrically, right? It's not just mindless, words or anything like that. They're meaningful songs lyrically, and they get deep. And similar, same with your solo music. But do you find yourself as you write songs, as you put those lyrics down, writing differently if it's over an acoustic or with an electric in mind? Yeah,
I can. It's interesting because I find with acoustic the lyrics really they can be. I find that the narrative is very important with when I'm doing acoustic because it's so exposed. And with rock and roll, it's when I'm playing electric and it's loud, and for me that's when I'm more aware of the melody. Well, the melody is just as crucial with acoustic, but I feel like when I'm writing the script for what I'm going to sing in an acoustic context, I will really go through everything in detail over and over and rewrite. And with the rock thing, I used to do that more, but I feel like now I've I've made enough rock records to know what works and what doesn't work. And so there's definitely a little bit different approach and between the two. Yeah.
No, I mean, it makes sense, man. It makes sense. Well, we were talking about the tour here in the States kicking off in the new year. Which again, I can't believe we're talking about that. But it's becoming more and more the reality that the next year is impending. In a earlier interview, I think I heard you say something like your manager keeps you pretty, moving forward pretty smoothly and planned out for like 5 years. Is that true? Or, I mean, is that how you operate?
Yeah, it's kind of we definitely have the next 3 years kind of a game plan, but it can all change. But for me as a writer, knowing that, it's almost like there's there are very few breaks. It's like you always know something is pending, possibly, and it could change. But if there's one thing I won't do, I will never be in the situation where it's like, okay, we got to make a record. We're going to the studio next week, and you've got nothing. So I'm always chipping away. I'm always working and just making sure when it's time, when it's go time, we've got songs, and my songwriting partners is the same. With Mark and with Slash, I think it's the same mentality, which is great. So we're never caught with our pants down in the studio.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it sure seems like, yeah, the guys you just named, you all stay pretty busy. So you kind of surround yourself with similarly minded guys who yeah, they just keep their heads down, they work their asses off, they're touring, they're making albums, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think that's why I've been so lucky, and I've had this run, is because I've found like-minded people. We feel the same way. It's just like what we were put on this planet to create and play music, and hopefully make some people happy in the process. And so when you meet kindred spirits like that, you want to make sure you nurture those relationships and maintain that, because that's not always the easiest thing to find. And the fact that I've been lucky enough to have, multiple areas where people feel the same way, man, I don't know how it all worked out this way. I'll take it.
Yeah. Don't ask too many questions about it, man.
Yeah. Right.
Well, you go back to, I'm not going to say the beginning, but certainly an introduction for a lot of people to you with Alter Bridge. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the debut album, One Day Remains. Is something like that, talking about working, nonstop and always looking ahead and moving ahead and having the next 3 years planned out. Is something like that a milestone, something you think about? Like, do you spend time looking back or reflecting on things like that?
A little bit. It's funny. I totally forgot until people started bringing it up. It came and went, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I think for me, it's fascinating because I just didn't expect I was always taught to believe that, hey man, if you can make it in the music, if you could just make one record in the music industry, you're doing well. Right. So once that box was checked, I was like, oh wow. Okay. Well, that was great. Now what? And the fact that, when we made that first Alter Bridge record, I thought, well, we'll make a record and they'll probably get back together with Scott, and they'll do, that's always kind of I've always been more of a realist, as opposed to maybe to my like a detriment. Like I probably should believe in things, myself a little more, but I don't want to get my expectations up and then be heartbroken. So I was always like, well, great. Hey, we made a record. Cool. And then now talking with you 20 years later, and we've made 7 records, and we've, it's boom, man, crazy. I don't get it. I'm grateful, but I just wouldn't have expected this, because let's face it, the law of, the average artist that embarks on this, it's hard to maintain. So, wow, it's crazy. It's crazy. 20 years later. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and not just 20 years of Alter Bridge, but like we were talking, the other things you have done, right? So all those albums with Alter Bridge, all the tours, all of that has been amazing. Then you throw in this, budding relationship with Slash that has grown into such an amazing relationship, and then the solo career too. And I mean, like the excitement around this new album, man. 3 solo albums into it, 20 years after Alter Bridge's debut album, like. It's cool, and it's gotta feel great. I mean, maybe it's the most obvious statement in the world, but it's gotta feel great that at this point in your career, all of these years into what you've done, all these albums into what you've done, all these relationships into what you've done, that you're still experiencing kind of new things and new excitement.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that having those parts of the equation that still get you excited. And the fact that, for me, the fact that anyone gives a damn about this record is, it's icing on the cake. I feel, like I just, because it could be one of those things where you make the solo record, it's kind of it's this thing, and you really enjoy it, and you make the music you want to make, and then it's like crickets. But the fact that somebody cares, it's great. Lucky.
I love it, man. I love that gratitude too. I mean, listen, we are very fortunate to welcome a lot of artists and musicians to the show, and And one universal thing, it seems, across the board is that gratitude. And, as I kind of take a step back, as I hear you talk, like, yeah, whether you're doing it 20 years, 1 year, 40 years, like whatever that is, the only thing or the one of the most important things that will sustain you is having that sort of that gratitude and just that awareness of what you've got. So
true. Gratitude. I heard this from a diehard fan a while back, and she said, gratitude is the attitude. And I was like, I love that. That needs to be a shirt. We need to put that in big bold letters on the back of the shirt, because it's true. It's so simple. It helps you. I think it puts everything in perspective. And you know what? I'm really stoked to hear the other artists feel the same way. Because one thing that bums me out is when people get put in any situation that's great and you're not cognizant of that, right? And you take it when people take things for granted, it's a drag because it's like, gratitude is the attitude.
That's it, man. That's a perfect way to wrap this up. So Myles Kennedy, listen, you've got solo album coming out in October, new tour hitting Europe in October, hitting the States in 2025. You've got the next 3 years planned out for you. What else? I mean, I'm not asking for specific details or anything, but like, is that maybe a new Alter Bridge album? Like what do you think's on the horizon?
I hopefully. I think that, I'm definitely trying to, in conjunction with everything else that's going on and promoting this record and whatnot, trying to get my head into that, what that could mean and be prepared.
Because that's one of the drawbacks of never stopping working, right? Is that you have to balance things like, all right, I got to celebrate this new album, but I also got to think ahead. You can, and that's the funny thing. I feel like you can never really rest on a record's coming out. You should be just like, okay, cool. I'm going to do this press, and then I'm going to go hang out at, and play golf. Or I don't play golf, but but trust me, ask Flip from Alter Bridge. Yeah. Don't ever let me near golf clubs. It's a disaster. but you never can really sit back and smell the roses. But you know what? When you love doing what you do, look. At the end of the day, and I think that's why you're talking about other artists, why we're so grateful, because being able to create, having the outlet to create and get things off your chest and make something that didn't exist in the universe prior to when you sat down that day. And then also having the luxury of like, someone's going to listen to that maybe. It's never really, I don't know, man. And I think I'm super aware of that because for a long time, I was the guy writing songs in his room thinking no one would ever hear them. So, and we're all grateful, and that's a beautiful thing. Gratitude is the attitude. And that wraps up this church service with Myles Kennedy. It's perfect, man. I love it. Thank you so much for hanging tonight, man. I know I can't wait for your new album, The Art of Letting Go. It will be out on October 11th. I cannot wait to catch you on the road at the top of the new year. We've got details on the album. We've got the full tour schedule, everything at loudwire.com. Myles Kennedy, thank you for being here, brother. Hopefully we can hang again soon. That's great. Thank you, Chuck. That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.